You're not getting it? I got that one on. Gina, remind him to turn the mics on too.
We've still got a few things we got
Okay.
to do.
Meeting will come to order. Welcome to the Cache County Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 9th. If you haven't signed in here by our county clerk, Ms. Bradfield, please make sure you sign your name so we know that you are here. And we will begin tonight with an opening by Councilman Gordon Zillis.
I'll make my remarks in the form of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, as we come before Thee at the beginning of this council meeting of Cache County, we're so very grateful for the many blessings which we have been blessed with as being members of this county, for the beautiful valley that we live in, for the people that are residents here, the people that come and visit. We're thankful for all the interactions that we have with them. We also are thankful for those who serve in the military that protect us and help us to preserve our freedom. We're grateful also for those who serve in elected officials, for their wisdom and for their willingness to listen to the different issues. We pray that that would help us to understand and be able to fill the concerns that those who visit with us have. Help us to be able to be fair and be attentive at what we do. We now ask that we'll be able to enjoy this meeting. We ask that that would be with our council chair, that she'll be able to direct the discussion and that she'll be able to keep us on task. We say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gordy. Appreciate that. First item of business is review and approval of the amended agenda. It was amended to add one item, the PILT payment. Do I have a motion on the agenda?
Before we do that, could I move that we postpone item 11A, ordinance 2021-05 till the next meeting. So a supporting document can be updated for us, and that we postpone the approval of the minutes until the next meeting too.
Okay, I will take those as separate motions. So we have a motion to approve the agenda except to strike item 11A, which is the consideration of pending action of the alcohol ordinance, because we are awaiting an amended ordinance. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, nay was
Paul.
Paul. Okay, so Paul was the nay on that, but the motion carries. Okay, then there's, yes.
Because there was a name, I had to say, that's on me, that I don't have an update prepared. I've been in touch with the council or lobbyist for Naomi Farms, and he knows that, and we can, okay.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Okay, we've had a motion made to postpone the approval of the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to postpone the approval of the February 2nd, February 9th, February 23rd minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, is there any follow-up for the minutes or for our last meeting?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I then move to approve the amended agenda as amended twice.
Oh, okay, so, well, we approved the agenda with, that, I misunderstood your request for motion, so I apologize. We approved the agenda amended with the stricken part of the alcohol ordinance, and then we moved to the minutes and postpone those to the next meeting. Does that accomplish
Yeah,
what you were
I
seeking?
was taking those two items out before we approved the agenda. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay, I'm sorry for my misunderstanding. I think we accomplished what you meant to, however, so, okay. Seeing no follow-up on the minutes, we will move to the report of our county executive, Executive Zook.
All right, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I have a couple of items for you this evening. First, I have some appointments to our Airport Authority Board. We had a great meeting over the last week, and Carl Ward from your council serves on that board and needs to be reappointed. And in reviewing the bylaws for the Airport Board, it says that we can appoint our Economic Development Director as an ex officio, non-voting board member, so I would like to appoint him as well. So those are the two appointments I have for you this evening.
Do I have a motion to appoint them?
I move, well, no, I'm on there.
Move to approve.
Yeah, I'll
Move to approve
second
both
that. I'll
appointments.
second that. Second.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve Carl Ward to the Logan Cache Airport Authority Board, and our Economic Development Director, Sean Milne, as a non-voting member, ex officio member of that board as well. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Back to you, Executive.
Thank you. The next item is to let you know that the expense report, the February 2021 expense report and warrant register has been submitted for your information. And then the last item I had was just a report under other items. Just wanted to let you know that I called and hosted an emergency task force meeting, not last Friday, but the Friday before, on the topic of suicide prevention. And your council chairwoman, Gina Worthen, was invited and attended that emergency task force meeting as well. The day prior to that, Tara Warner with our Victim Services Office approached me and told me that she felt like I needed to know about something. And she shared with me that there was a month last year when we had, I think she said 4 or 5 suicides in that month. And she said they were so distraught about the high number, and were very concerned. And thankfully it subsided after that. And she said that was the highest they'd ever seen. But then she told me that in the first 2 months of this year, we'd already had 13, which is far more than they had ever seen, even on that high month last year. I asked the health department, just as a comparison, I was curious how many people in our county died from COVID in those 2 months, and it was 10. So the first 2 months of this year in Cache County, we had 10 COVID deaths and 13 deaths from suicide. And that's the reason why I called that emergency task force together. We had representatives from Utah State University, from the Bear River Health Department, Bear River Mental Health, the Family Place, the Utah Department of Health, and the Utah Medical Examiner's Office, as well as Gina and myself, and a number of other people who participated. We had a really good discussion about the issue and about some of the challenges facing our community. I think it's too big of an issue for us to even have expected to come up with a solution that evening, but I feel like we did make some progress. I just want to let you know about this issue so that you're aware, because the same reason why Terrell felt like I needed to know about it, I think all of you need to know about it. I feel like one of the issues that kind of rose to the top in that task force meeting was a need for connection in our community. The citizens in Cache County, especially the youth in our community, need to be able to connect. I've heard different numbers, 4 or 5 of those 13 who were Utah State University students. And I've also heard that all but 1 or 2 were males in that group. So there are a number of things that we can do. There is a suicide prevention coalition that is headed by the Bear River Health Department, and that's something that I was not aware of prior to this meeting, and something that I plan to partner with, a group I plan to partner with. And I did reach out to our state legislators and our governor about this issue and made sure they were aware of it. And that's what I'm doing tonight, is making sure you are aware of it as well. If you'd like to provide feedback, or if you have ideas about it, I'd love to hear that. One thing the health department is going to do is in May they're going to do a suicide prevention walk and event to help bring awareness to the issue. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and they're talking about doing that on May 1st. So as that gets finalized, I'll give you more information about it. One final thing I just want to bring to your attention this evening is we are in the process of distributing our RAPS funds for the year, and the step we are at in the process is everybody just turned in their applications, and we will be convening that committee to review those applications. And in looking at the appointments for that committee, it looks like all of those appointments expired at the end of last year, so I'll bring those to you next time for reappointment. If you have any input on the representative from your district, I'd be open to that. And I just want to kind of plant this seed too as an idea or a potential change in our philosophy this year with RAPS tax money. The committee will make a recommendation, but of course you all get to make the final decision on that. But I think it might be in order for us to consider a different approach this year if we look at the economic impacts of many of the groups who apply and how they've been harmed over the last year with the shutdown. So I just would ask that maybe you consider that and think about whether or not there are some people who can maybe wait a year to build their park or trail project, and maybe there are some of the other ones that really need this because they had to shut down their operations over the last year. So just a thought I'd like to share, and you can think about that between now and when we bring those to you for approval in a couple weeks.
David, when is the deadline for that?
The deadline for the applications, it passed.
It passed, it's already passed. Okay, I knew it was in March. Is it the 1st of March?
It was last Friday. Last Friday. Yeah, last
It's
Friday.
always the concern is we just don't get that word out very well, and we miss some people.
I hear a lot of people got the word because I hear there's a stack this big of applications.
David, I have a follow-up question for you. Have we heard anything back from the state medical examiner? My understanding was he was contacted by one of the state legislators who works with suicide to investigate the possibility of a suicide cluster at Utah State. Have we heard anything back on that?
I have not heard back, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for participating in the task force.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for that report. We will move to item 7A. The payment in lieu of taxes, payment presentation and request for council approval of proposed changes to the Millville Providence Wildlife Management Area Habitat Management Plan. Boy, that was a mouthful.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the council, members of the executive and council staff. My name is Ben Nadolski. I work for the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources, and I'm the regional supervisor for the northern part of the state. What that means is I oversee operations throughout northern Utah. And if you thought that agenda item was a mouthful, so is my last name. So good luck remembering it. But no, we do appreciate this opportunity to be here. The first order of business tonight is to present you with a check for $9,160.57. This is a payment in lieu of taxes. We're a tax-exempt state organization, but there is an agreement and a requirement in state law that we do make a payment to local counties in lieu of what we would pay in taxes for lands that we own in your county. So if it's okay, I'd just pass that to your staff and over to the county executive for formal receipt. And Madam Chair, with your permission, if it's okay if I could introduce our other
Yes, please.
participant.
Thank you.
So I'm joined tonight by habitat restoration or wildlife habitat biologist Pam Kramer. Pam is working on revisions to the Wildlife Management Area Management Plan, and by law we are required, but also in good practice, we like to reach out to local communities and gather input as we develop these management plans. So while there is no formal action required by the council tonight, we do appreciate appreciate this venue for us to present just briefly some of the changes we're considering. We're in the process of gathering feedback. And case in point for this venue being so helpful, the fire chief is in attendance. Fire chief said, hey, we got a call today from someone on your staff. That's somebody from Pam's team. We're in the act of reaching out to local communities and members to gather feedback before we make a final decision on our end for approval of the plan. So with your permission, I'll pass this over to Pam, who has far more detailed knowledge than I ever will.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, excuse me, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Janine said she put all this on your tablet, so I don't know how that all works with you guys, but as Ben mentioned, we're here tonight to talk about our Millville Providence Wildlife Management Area in kind of the south central part of Cache County. Next slide. So why we're here is that by state code, the Division of Wildlife Resources has to write management plans on all of our state properties and get approvals and review by different stakeholders in the middle of that process. So this just lays out what our process is for us. We go through our Northern Region office and our biologists and other folks who are interested, different land management agencies, the Forest Service, BLM, whoever the agencies may be, to work on that. We then go through our division, UDWR Habitat Council in Salt Lake office, and that's made up of 4 division people and 4 outside representatives like Mule Deer Foundation or Elk Foundation or Trout Unlimited or different entities that are involved with that. And then from there, it also goes to the Resource Development Coordinating Committee, or RDCC, and that's housed in the governor's office. And as part of that process, all the counties for which a project resides get notified of a project within their county. So that's how you guys should be getting notified. And so this plan would come to you through that process. And so we like, as a courtesy, to meet with our county commissions to make you guys aware of the plan and explain what we're doing and if you answer any questions that you may have on that. And then we also go to our Regional Advisory Council. We'll do that in May of this year and get their blessing and approval. And then we may go to the Wildlife Board. So it's kind of a long process to get this through the whole thing. So the purposes of our Millville Providence Wildlife Management Area are basically to protect big game winter range. That's why it was purchased originally. We do intend to reduce deer and elk depredation in surrounding private lands as well with the deer fence that's in place. We want to restore habitat where we can. We manage wildlife populations under whatever objectives they are for, like your deer and elk numbers. We have carrying capacities for that. And then just conserve and protect sensitive species where we can. Next. So for those of you who may not be aware of where that's at, the Millville Providence Wildlife Management Area is just to the east of Millville and Providence City. It's there in the brown. The green land to the east is all Forest Service. The pink is the Hiram State Park, and the blue at the very bottom of the screen is the Green Canyon conservation easement that's held. It's private land, but with a conservation easement on it held by Forestry, Fire, and State Lands. So that kind of gives you an idea of how that's situated. The red line, kind of between the blue and the brown, that's along the river corridor, and that's where a trail is proposed to go to kind of connect up the canyon from the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. So the general information is the property is 3,200 acres. We started acquiring land for it back in 1941 and continued through till 1995 to purchase all the different lands and basically to address wildlife depredation on agricultural lands. In 1980s to 2000s, we did feed elk on the property. If you haven't been up there, there's an 8-foot tall, and I have a picture in the next slide, but the 8-foot tall fence is called V-mesh wire fencing that's 7 miles long from Blacksmith Fork Canyon all the way up to north of Providence Canyon. And then subsequent to that, someone else has taken, and I don't know who, I assume that probably the Cache Valley Wildlife Federation years ago, took it from where it ended from the division property all the way up to Logan Canyon. So the fence goes all the way up to Logan Canyon now. The property was purchased using federal aid dollars, which is money from the Fish and Wildlife Service, so the federal government helped us acquire that land, and that we don't hold any water rights on the property. So that's an example of what the fence looks like, and if you look at the wire mesh on it, it's shaped like a V, like lots of up and down Vs in there, and so that's why they call it a V-mesh fence. It's a very strong type of fence that animals have a hard time getting through that. People can cut it and get through, and that's one of our issues that we have, but it tends to protect wildlife on the east side. Next. So the wildlife on the property we have is the habitat support, critical wildlife winter habitat for deer and elk, moose, and upland game. We have 14 species of what's called species of greatest conservation need, which are identified in our wildlife action plan. And those are species that we're concerned about, we don't know a whole lot about, we want to do more studies on or research on and find out if they're there or not. Within the Cache Valley is within our deer and elk herd unit 2, and 41% of the mule deer and 32% of the elk winter range within that unit is private land. So it means all of our public land is all the more valuable to hold, to protect for future if we want to continue having deer and elk. And then, as we talked earlier, has been mentioned with your fire marshal here, the lower bench habitats burn pretty frequently. So we're trying to undertake restoration efforts. So next. So just some of the habitats that are on the property. So the Wildlife Action Plan, as well as identifying species of concern, also identifies habitats of concern. And so these habitats are the ones that are on their property that are of concern. If you haven't been up there on the property, kind of gives you an idea what's there, from the grassland, shrubland areas to the more mountain meadow, mountain shrub habitats. Next. So the habitat conditions and concerns that we have is that right now the big game winter range is considered fair to poor because a lot of the fires that occur on the property. We also have a lot of noxious and invasive weeds that come on when you have fires that frequently burn through. The presence of cheatgrass and bulbous bluegrass just kind of take over that area. Because of the south-facing slopes that are there, and they're hot and dry, and they're very difficult to get good shrub seedlings established there. We also have some encroaching juniper into the canyons specifically, which reduces some of the browse component. And then we have folks that want to put OHV trails kind of everywhere they can up all the canyons, which also causes erosion and destroys the property. So the public use concerns that we have are the illegal OHV uses, debris and litter left on the site. We have people create trails all the time. We have issued several actual easements and leases for folks to have trails on us with the Cache County Trails folks, but other people just sort of establish trails wherever they want. We have people that cut the deer fence to access the property wherever they want, if they're near some of their subdivisions that are kind of abutting up to our fence that we have to deal with. We have squatters that decide they're going to camp all summer on the property. And then we do have some irresponsible folks who decide they want to shoot everywhere they can, and becomes a safety issue. So next. So for the access, it's kind of hard to see. You probably see it better on your tablets, but this just shows where their different parking areas are. The fence is that red line that goes all the way along the western boundary, and there's some parking lots in through there as well that you can take a look at. And then the trails that go up the different canyons as well. So next. So the dirt roads in both Millville and Providence Canyon are open year-round. And they provide access to the Forest Service, through the division property to the Forest Service. However, we do outside of the roads on the bottom, we have the property closed January 1st through the second Saturday of April. That's to protect wintering wildlife. Wildlife tend to get stressed when they're pushed around a lot in the wintertime, and people think they're just walking with their dogs or cross-country skiing. They're not a big deal, but from a wildlife perspective, they're a predator. So we kind of close down anything outside the canyon bottoms. And we've had a lot of issues with people thinking that doesn't mean me, it means everybody else but me. And so what's in the blue there is the sign that we actually have on the property to identify that it's closed to hiking and running and walking and biking and antler gathering, et cetera, so that folks know that it really does mean them, and we're not being mean. We just want to protect our wildlife. They have so little habitat left that they can escape to in the wintertime. Next. And we're also right now closing down target shooting and overnight camping in the canyon bottoms. Especially in Providence Canyon, it's a major concern. There's a trail that we've issued a trail license to, and you had people that were shooting right where people were walking on the trail. It became quite a public safety issue, as well as you get a high level of folks traveling on the roads there. We have met with Millville City about 2 weeks ago, and they were fine with us closing down Millville Canyon, and we're meeting next week with Providence City as well to make sure that they're on board with that. We've met with their city manager, but we're going to make a presentation to their city council as well. And so we have all these other issues. So camping and overnight camping and target shooting is what we'll be looking to close down. The recreational opportunities that are on the property, they're varied, they're many. They're camping outside the canyon bottoms, working with Providence City on an easement for them to have the picnic area, a formal picnic area that's in the canyon bottom there, and for them to maintain the parking lots. There's fishing, upland game hunting, big game hunting, wildlife viewing, and then all the trails that are also there. So because I mentioned earlier the property burns quite frequently, it's just kind of set up for fire, the way it's set up there to burn. So since 1985, we've done several WRI, or what's Watershed Restoration Initiative projects, and you can get on a website and just Google WRI, and you'll be able to come up with, in the state of Utah, the different projects we've done throughout the state, and zoom in on Cache County, and there's a plethora of projects that have been done. On the WMA specifically, we've been looking to have a scalper, which is a piece of equipment that you pull behind a tractor that creates those furrows, clears away all the vegetation that's there, and then we can plant good browse and brush and grass seeds into that area that's been cleared of all the competing vegetation. We're also removing in juniper and in the canyons to reduce the risk of fire in through there. We also use grazing to help manage the vegetation as well. And these are after our meeting with Forestry, Fire, and State Land, their wildland fire folks, and then the Cache County fire folks as well, to come up with these recommendations. And this is just a map that we got from Forestry, Fire, and State Land, that all the red is, okay, the black is our property boundary, and the red is where it's most likely going to burn. And so you can see where pretty much that whole property is just set to burn if things come from the houses nearby, or lightning strikes are frequently on this property. We're also looking to create 30-foot wide buffer strips on the east side of the deer fence on our administrative road to help widen that fuel break there. So that's just really quick and dirty. We were told we only had a short period of time, so we just wanted to make this quick. But we're happy to answer any questions you may have about this property or anything else happening in Cache County regarding wildlife.
Council, questions? Go ahead.
How long's the canyon bottoms closed to camping?
How long, or?
Is it for an indefinite period of time? It would seem
We were going to make it permanent, yeah.
It would seem like in the summer, that's the better place to camp if it's so dry and everything else, where there is some moisture or something else. Or
We tend to have a lot of squatters that stay there. Our officers tend to have some domestic violence issues from people camping there. I don't know if it's more of a problem in Providence Canyon than it is in Millville, but it does occur in Millville Canyon as well, where people stay 3 months or 4 months so we're making that area a day use only area right now is our recommendation. So we have some concerns, we can talk about it more, but that's our proposal right now.
I have a question. I have a couple questions. That was one of my questions. I was going to ask what the reasoning was for nothing going away. My other question is about the fire breaks. You mentioned those. I know there have been at least 2 fires there in the last decade, and I believe the one, I think it was 2013 or 14, I was told that a dozer went through and actually made a fire break on the east side of the fence. Is that what you were referring to, that was going to be improved or extended, or what did you mean by the 30-foot fire break? So
there's a road, an administrative road that follows the deer fence, just the deer fence, and we're just on the east side of the deer fence, and that's been in place since the 1940s when they first put in the fence originally. And so the proposal is to widen that a little bit wider to make that, because you already have a fuel break, so to speak, there on that, but to make that a little bit wider in through there. And that's also where the Cache County Trail runs along that route as well.
So would it be 30 feet, the entire 7 miles?
It'd be nice if we could make that happen. It may be wider in some spots, it may be smaller in some spots.
But that's the plan, is to have a break the entire length? Good, thank you. And then how often will that be regraded?
I don't know that we've really talked about that yet. I think we're just trying to get the initial, get it done, get it in place. And I guess I might go to Rob. Where'd you go? If you.
We've been mowing that area for the last 5 years, and we scrape it about every 4th year. But we're just maintaining like 2 blade widths through there, 16 feet. But we get it every year, trying to clean that out.
Good, thank you.
So to follow up on that piece a little more, what can we do to help you get that fire break in place? I think those wildland urban interfaces, wildfire interfaces are an issue now, but I think that only becomes more acute in the next year or two. I mean, wildfire is a big deal. So what can we do to help you on that?
I'm not sure at this point in time. I think it could be some monies to help us make some things happen. We're trying to, we're people, if they do camp in the canyons, right, we're trying to take out some of the tree cover that fire can leap from canopy to canopy and kind of reduce that, as well as increase the browse component within the canyon bottoms. And then doing this fuel break that's there. We may want to look at other fuel breaks in the future. Some of the vegetation that we're planting into those scalps, it's fire-resistant vegetation. It tends to not like fire, stay greener longer, and forage kochia is one of the things they typically use at these lower elevations. And so they may look at doing more of those, and so we'll definitely look you guys up when we get to that point. We'd love to have another partner. That would be great.
Please do. Anything I can do to help. I know I've worked in that area, and there's certain parts of Utah that are really having some significant issues with wildfire and coverage.
Question, you say that you're trying to, keep the squatters from coming in. How much enforcement, do you have people to cover that area, or do you rely on local enforcement to enforce that?
There's both. We have conservation officers that live here in Cache County, and they visit that area frequently. And then we also have Cache County Sheriff's Department. They get in there as well, and so they work together. There's also the U.S. Forest Service. They have they only have one law enforcement personnel, so that person gets spread out a little bit thinner. But they also work with us to kind of control that. And we've met with them because if we, close it down on us, they're just going to move most likely up to the Forest Service property to the east. So we wanted.
My concern, because I'd heard there was only one officer.
Right. So we've met with Jennifer, we've talked to Jennifer Parker about it, the district ranger here, and then with their law enforcement staff as well, so.
And how often is that area patrolled?
I don't know if it's on a set schedule or not. They just frequently go up there unless they get a call. If someone's up there and they call that there's a problem, then they'll definitely go up there for that. But they're not wildlife-related issues that happen there, so.
My question is one that probably goes along with what Barbara was saying. I guess if that's a popular place of camping for the residents of Cache County, I'm not so sure I'm all excited about just closing it down. One thing that we're starting to see with more population is less places to camp. And now we're starting to hear from you guys that we want to even shut off some more. And you just justified it because of squatters, is that correct?
Squatters, and there's trash, and people overstay their welcome by state law, or by our code, by Utah State Code, with the Division of Wildlife Resources, we can regulate camping up to 14 days. And people will stay 14 days, leave a day, and then come back and stay for another 14 days, leave it, and so it's nobody else gets an opportunity because you have the same folks that are there all year. And they set up, I've seen pictures where they've set up major camps with RVs and surrounding their porta potties and a whole bunch of things. And so it becomes a housing area for one or two people, because there's only 3 areas there that have the picnic tables in the one area, Providence Canyon, and there's like 2 more areas further up canyon, just at the edge of the division property.
So the way we solve it is we just kick everybody out and not even use it. Is that what I'm trying to understand? Is that the solution for the state?
Ben wants to talk. No, we're going to have it as a day use only area. And Providence City so far and Millville City have been happy with that, but Ben, I'll let you address that if you wanted to.
Thanks. So I actually appreciate the line of questioning because it gets right to the heart of some of the challenges we've been confronted with, especially since the pandemic started. We're seeing a really big push for folks to get outside, and nobody loves outdoor recreation as much as we do. That's what we're here for. And what we're wanting to do is not to restrict people's uses. We're not looking to shut people down or shut people out. What we're really feel like we're in a lot of pressure to do now is to manage things better, for us to manage all of those uses. We're under an increasing amount of scrutiny and pressure from a lot of different uses. Pam discussed a lot the intent and the purpose of the lands and the requirements that we have based on how the land was acquired by us through those federal regulations. But we're able to accommodate multiple uses. Where we often struggle is with the public is we're really not seen as any different from a federal land management agency who has a multiple use and sustained yield mandate in federal law. We don't have that mandate, but we absolutely invite other uses. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're managing them to a degree that they're taking place safely and responsibly. And where we're talking about recreational shooting, for example, we're an agency that loves recreational shooting. In fact, it really can't take place in the recreation that we manage for, which is hunting without shooting. And so what we're looking to do is to make sure that people can do it and do it safely, to make sure that we're not creating fire dangers, et cetera. And so we're only talking about small areas where those safety nexes and where we have a lot of pressures and traffic from foot traffic and vehicle traffic. And we have bullets that are crossing roads back and forth, and we have trails that are cutting behind areas where people are setting up informal shooting areas. Those are the things that give us pause and the most concern. But we have thousands of acres that we own as well, where we're invite responsible shooting and camping, et cetera. And we've got this issue in most of the wildlife management areas that we own in other counties. And what we're hearing from a lot of the county deputies on the ground is there anything you can do to help us manage some of these uses so that the calls for service are not getting so far out of control? And as Pam alluded to, it's more than just people that are squatting for longer than they're intended. We're getting a lot of domestic violence. We have really quite a few issues that our officer, who is tasked with enforcing wildlife law, really is starting to have to transition more to a county deputy type of a role to help with these issues. And we don't want to just the counties to have to absorb all of that pressure. But we absolutely couldn't do it without the help of your county sheriff. So we thank you for that as well.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
And what was it that you needed? Anything from us specifically, or just to present?
Just to have this conversation and to get this kind of an input. Sorry if it's taken longer.
That's okay.
We can't predict the input we get, but we don't want to cut your input short. So if there's more conversations to be had, we're happy to do that too.
I just want to say one thing. I've been up Providence Canyon when there's been shooting going on, and I don't know when, when I'm running, I don't know whether to duck or look where it's coming from or what. So I appreciate that you are doing something about that up there, because there is, and then there's a safety issue too. Some of the camps I see up there, not too comfortable running by them. So I think I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
If you guys have other questions later on as you read the plan, or have any other questions, so please let us know. We're here to help answer whatever.
Leave
So
your contact information with
sure,
Janine, please.
I'll get you a business card. Okay, thank you so much.
Very much. Okay, so we have some public hearings set for 5:30, 5:40, and on through 6:10. And so, Julie, what we're going to do is we're going to move to those public hearings, and then we're going to circle back around, my favorite latest catchphrase, and get you so we can give up your presentation our full attention. Will that be all right, or do you need to leave?
Would you rather have me come back in 2 weeks? You're the ones who have to sit through the long meeting, so you tell
Yeah,
me.
would you guys prefer that? Okay, since I don't see objection from the council, we'll have you come back on March 23rd.
Okay.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
That will be fine. Hopefully it just won't be same bad presenter, you know?
You'll do great. Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, so let's, Chris will move down to item 10A, public hearing on the Fritz Tower rezone, and Chris Harold will give us some background information on that. And we'll catch up with you about your Imagine Cash update after we get through the public hearings, if that's okay.
That's correct, thank you.
Okay.
I feel bad overloading your schedule with all the public hearings, but I didn't submit the applications, so
Thank you.
that's what it is. The first one is ordinance 2021-06, the Fritz Tower rezone. This is a request to amend the Cache County zoning map and add the public infrastructure overlay zone to a 40 by 40 or 1,600 square foot portion of a 5.03 acre property in the A10 zone. If you're familiar with the properties just above Hiram Reservoir, there's a hill there to the south. There's the Nautica subdivision, there's Miller Lakeview Estates there, and I was going to pull that up on the map. Thank you, Janine. I'll show you on the map where that's at so you have a visual of what we're looking at. You also have it in your packet of what's being requested, the staff report there, the minutes from the Planning Commission, their review. Oh, yep, perfect. Thank you. All right, so there's, you can see those hashed lines is the subdivision itself. Property being proposed for the overlay zone. You'll see this kind of disturbed earth on the aerial map. So how this kind of came about is the tower was built, the structure was built, we were notified of it, and then we had to do some enforcement follow-up to encourage them to comply. So as soon as the property owner was aware that there was a compliance issue, they've been quick to comply. And so the first step to be able to put the tower there is to pursue a rezone, to see if that works. And so where this property is disturbed, I think the area proposed for rezone is just a little bit south of there so we can meet minimum setback requirements for the tower that would be proposed. That would come to the Planning Commission as a conditional use permit process. So that tower piece would not come here, but those tower requirements are stipulated within the county code. If you have more questions specific to that, I can address some of those. But the rezone itself is just for, or the request for itself today is just for the rezone that would allow them to place such a tower there. I think it's primarily used for increasing some of the connections for the houses that are in that area. That is kind of a high point for the properties around that area, and improves their access to internet, television. Those are, I think, the two main things that are on that tower. This went to the Planning Commission. They've made a recommendation to the County Council for approval, unanimous approval.
Council, do you have any quick questions while we?
What's Channel 15?
What is Channel 15?
What is Channel 15? Well,
No, not right now. We'll,
Public hearing, you probably, I couldn't tell you, I don't know what Channel 15 is.
It's just a local channel or something?
I believe so, I don't know. I don't watch any TV, I'm not gonna be a great source there.
I just know, I noticed also from your minutes that you had from your meeting, it says that he commented the tower was constructed in January of 2019, but he did not construct the tower. I thought that was pretty interesting. It was constructed but did not
It didn't get constructed at the same time.
He
It was in the minutes that it got constructed, but he did not construct it, so.
A different contractor did. That is funny, though.
No, that's.
okay. Seeing no further questions at this time, we'll move into a public hearing. So if there's someone that would like to comment about the Fritz Tower rezone, if you will come to the mic here and give us your name, make your comments. Please be brief, and if someone else has already made the same comment that you're going to make, let's just leave it at that and not have to duplicate comments. So is there anyone interested in speaking to this rezone?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll now move to item 10B, public hearing on ordinance 2021-7, Dry Canyon Estates rezone, Dry Canyon Estates rezone. And Chris, if you'll give us some background on that as well.
I've got it on the screen for you there if you'd like to see it on the screen, and for those in the audience, that's probably helpful. Again, this is the Dry Canyon Estates rezone. This is a request to amend the zoning map by rezoning 20 acres of property from the A10 or agricultural zone to the RU2 or rural 2 zone. The Planning Commission heard this. They've made a request for denial. I imagine, I would expect you've read through the minutes, but I'll touch on some of the pieces that substantiate their recommendation. As they reviewed that, the pieces they touched on in their conclusion, one of those is Smithfield had expressed opposition to rezones for that type of development in their future annexation area. So that was one consideration. Another piece has to do with infrastructure in that area. The commission felt that it was better suited that that type of development should have city support and not county. Word left my brain, I apologize. Wells or septic systems. The preference is they would be attached to city or municipal services. And also it identified that that zone is not compatible with the surrounding properties and patterns of development. As you come into the mouth of Dry Canyon there, you can see the property highlighted on the map. And their recommendation, that just for them justified the recommendation for denial for this specific rezone. When you look at the property right now, the 20 acres would allow them to have 2 homes as a maximum. With the rezone to RU2, they could have a maximum of 10 homes in that area. It does create some challenges for access and placement of the homes. I'm sure there's some ways you could engineer around it. But from a rezone standpoint, they really felt that this wasn't a good location for that zone. That's all staff has.
Thanks, Chris. This is a public hearing, so is there anyone who is interested in speaking to the council about this rezone? They can again come to the microphone. Make sure you tell us your name.
Good evening. I am Thomas Birmingham, and I am part of the development. Appreciate your time tonight. I just wanted to give you a little overview real quick. This started out as it's primarily a family development. We started this project as a development for a home for our parents and to build a few homes for ourselves to help offset the costs of development. We are seeking the rezone to the RU2, which would allow us to build the 10 homes. Currently, it's zoned as he covered, 1 home per 10 acres. But that would only allow us to build 2 homes on 20 acres, right? And which would significantly changes the cost of building a home. If you're trying to build in this area, 1 home on 10 acres is much more prohibitive and expensive. And normally, just to justify building a home on 10 acres up here, you would be looking at a $1 to $2 million home in this area. But subdividing the land would allow us to have larger lots, still allows us to have larger lots of 2 acres, right? But it would make the price of the homes much more approachable for our family and others who want to live in the area. Second, with the RU2 zoning, we feel that it is what we're seeking reflects the reflects the goals and the intent of the RU2 zoning, which is to allow and encourage higher density in areas that border cities and are not primarily agricultural areas. As you can see, to the west of it, houses are built all the way up, and this isn't even the latest aerial view. Homes are pretty dense in that area, so allowing us directly below it, the houses are on 1/4 acre lots. And so we're asking for 2 acre lots to reflect and respect the area. And for this reason, we feel that our land is a prime candidate for RU2 zoning, and that's why we're seeking it. And third, about annexation into Smithfields. Our preference would be to be annexed into Smithfields. So far, they've expressed opposition to annexing us, and they've also denied annexation for a neighboring lot recently. And so we'd prefer to be annexed into Smithfield. The infrastructure would be a lot easier, but because Smithfield doesn't want us, we'd like to be able to use our land and move forward on developing it, because we can't change their mind. We're trying, but we are planning on leaving it stubbed if we are able to develop it under the RU2. We're planning on stubbing it so that we could use their utilities in the future, and we'll continue to seek being annexed into Smithfield is our ultimate goal. So that is just what I wanted to share tonight about why we're doing this and why we feel we're a good candidate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
My name is Brent Lawyer. I'm also part of the same family, and we also are looking to build on that land as well. I did want to address maybe a little bit more regarding the utilities. While gas, power, and telecom are all available right there in 3rd South at the property line, as well as water and sewer, Smithfield had indicated that one of the reasons they were going to refuse to annex us was that they felt that the water pressure wasn't sufficient to supply that area. Now, we do actually have a well permit that we've applied for. We'll just go ahead and put in our own well to allow us to not only provide for culinary, but also allow us to maybe use this for more than just dry hay, which up till now it's been used at, but it's pretty much petered out. So, as far as utilities, I think the fact that if Smithfield's not going to cooperate, we're happy to provide those ourselves. It does increase the cost somewhat. We do have to go to Bear River to, get those engineering studies on the septic and make sure we're not overloading in terms of density or anything like that. And that may end up resulting in a lower density as far as the number of lots that we're able to build on, but we're willing to accept that. Just wanted to address those issues as we were discussing it. But I would hope that you would approve the rezone as has been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we are now at item 10C, 5:50 p.m. public hearing on ordinance 2021-08, Mountain View subdivision rezone. Chris, can you give us background information on that, please?
Kind of a reflex. I covered my mouth to clear my throat with the mask on. This is ordinance 2021-08, Mountain View subdivision rezone. It's a request to amend the county zoning map by rezoning 6.69 acres from the agricultural A10 zone to the rural RU2 zone. The Planning Commission has reviewed and made a recommendation to the council of approval. It's based on the two conclusions noted. As you look at the property, you can see somewhat the reasoning of the Planning Commission, in that this is approximate to the Mendon city boundary, and it allows for residential development in a moderately dense pattern that allows for rural subdivisions without impeding adjacent agricultural uses. To the back of this property is the railroad. This property lies between two different subdivisions with similar size lots as they would propose. So on that property, they could have one house as it currently stands in the A10 zone. With a rezone to RU2, they could have 3 lots. So that would indicate 3 additional homes. In discussing this, and this doesn't really play into the rezone, but future development, you can see that longer leg that extends to the west. The intent that would be that there wouldn't likely be homes on that parcel. It's too narrow. Those would be focused towards the front of the property. Another challenge that is associated with this property is the spacing between the access points. Under our current standard, if they were to add an additional access, that would be in violation of our current standard. They would have to obtain access from either the property to the north or to the south and then come in to these other properties. Another option would be to pursue a design exception. And I'm not sure which route the applicant is going to pursue if this were approved. Trying to check to see if there's anything I've forgotten specific to this rezone request. I do recall that the Planning Commission's comments were that this made sense in this location because of its proximity to the city, and there wasn't a lot of other options to bring them into the city because of the location of the railroad. Proposed a challenge for them. That's staff's report.
Thank you, Chris.
Excuse me.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this rezone?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, and we have a public hearing scheduled at 6 o'clock for item 10D. Public hearing on ordinance 2021-09, an ordinance amending Cache County Fire Code. John Luthi, if you could speak to that.
The impetus for this ordinance is that there's been some folks that have been discussing developing land above Hiram Reservoir in the to the south of the Nautica subdivision that have come in a number of times. Talk about what would be required, and the county has indicated that because of the number of homes that would result, that there would need to be secondary access to that subdivision, and we've been able to point to our road manual regarding needing to meet basic safety requirements. We've also noted to them that the appendix of the International Fire Code, Appendix D, specifically says that once you hit 30 homes, you must have a secondary access road. And the consideration there is that once you get that many homes, if you were to have an event in a development with that many homes and the one road becomes inaccessible, then you really have trouble getting emergency equipment in or even just people out. Even if the road doesn't become completely inaccessible, the road in that area needs upgrading, and just getting equipment in and out would be difficult. So that's the specific, and they have come back to us and said, well, but you don't have Appendix D to the International Fire Code in your county fire code. And we've acknowledged that, and again pointed to the general safety requirements in the road manual. But at the recommendation of our fire chief and public works, are recommending adoption of Appendix D, portions of it into the county fire code. As we prepared the ordinance to do that, we found that the current references in county ordinance to state code, where the county has already adopted the International Fire Code generally as adopted in state code, and we saw at section such and such and realized that section no longer exists. We need to update just our references to state code in our county fire code. So this does those two things, updates our references to state law in the portions of Appendix D to the International Fire Code. And I'm happy to answer any more specific questions than that. I think we've got Rod here too that could as well.
Council, do you have any questions? No? Thank you, John. So this is also a public hearing, so if we have anyone interested in speaking to this ordinance, you can come to the mic and let us know your thoughts.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we have scheduled a 6:10 public hearing on the amending the Cache County budget. Since we're not quite there yet, let's move back to item 8B. Chris, if you will give us an Imagine Cache update.
So for our update today, I'm gonna try to talk. I think I'm a little sleep deprived, so I'm challenged today. For our update today, we are moving pretty well with our consultant, Logan Simpson Design, but primarily I want you to meet our new countywide planner. So what I'd like to do is introduce you and have her come up. Lauren, this is Lauren Ryan. She's our new countywide planner. Previously, we had Taylor Jensen, and he moved back to Eagle Mountain, or is in that process. But I'd like Lauren to introduce you, let you know what she's been up to recently. Just so you're familiar with her, as we do future updates, she'll be the one bringing those to you to let you know what's going on.
Lauren, can you take your mask off so we can see what you
Yes,
look like?
this is my face.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for having me. I'm Lauren Ryan. I'm the new countywide planner for Cache County. Super excited to be here. Just a little bit of background on me. I'm from Montana, grew up in Billings, moved down here about a year ago from Missoula. I worked as a planner for Missoula County up there, so my background's in planning, and so I will be on board to get the Imagine Cache project back up and running. It kind of lost some steam with the transition between Taylor and I. Also continue to work with the various communities throughout Cache County, assisting them in their planning needs and just being a resource for them as well. So you'll be seeing more of me around here, and super excited to be here and happy to answer any questions anytime. Thanks, guys.
Council, do you have any questions for Lauren?
What brought you out of Billings?
Well, so my husband is a archaeologist, and he got a job down here for a private consulting firm. So,
Thought you saw the light or something.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I was the only one moving out of Montana during the pandemic. Everyone was coming in, I was going out. So, yeah. But super excited to be in Cache Valley.
Good.
I started life in Billings too.
Oh, okay.
And I came down a lot longer time ago than that.
Right. Awesome. Thank you.
Lauren, is it still possible for people to give input into the plan, Imagine Cache?
Yeah, so moving forward, we're kind of on to our visioning piece of the project is what we're moving on to next. So we'll be getting in touch with our steering committee members and stakeholders once we have that next piece from our consultants. So that's kind of where we're moving to. We had a survey that went out to community members, and so they're gathering all that feedback that we received and going to have that piece moving forward for you guys. So yes, definitely more opportunity to stay engaged.
Perfect, thank
Chris,
you.
is there anything to add to that? Is that?
That's great.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much, welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a 6:10 public hearing, amending the 2021 Cache County budget, and even though it's a few minutes early, I bet by the time we get done introducing it, it will be 6:10, and people can comment if they wish. So Cameron, yeah, walk really slow. Talk real slow.
Are you saying I'm long-winded? Is that how I'm supposed to understand that?
Yeah, be long-winded.
Actually, the budget amendment reminds me of a story I read about a third-grade boy. They went on a field trip, and they saw a castle, right? And they were supposed to come back and write about it in their English class. Tell us about the castle. And his story was really short. That he saw this castle and it was big. The end, right? So the teacher gave him feedback and says, well, you need to be more descriptive. And so he says, in his paper he turned in next, he says, well, we went to such and such place and I saw a castle and it was big. And when I say big, I mean big. So our budget opening today is big. And when I say big, I mean big. But it's in three pieces. So the first piece is generally what we consider our usual budget amendment of the activities, things that are happening right now that we're trying to respond to. But in addition to that, we have a piece where at the beginning of each year, we reallocate payroll funds. So in our original budget, we will estimate in every department what funds would be needed, usually an average percentage across the board. And so when those increases are actually calculated and given out, and we do a refresh on what is needed in the budget, there's always a jumble of we got to take some from here and put it over there and get that allocated to where those raises were provided. But there's not usually an additional request of funds, and that's the case generally speaking in this one. In addition to that section, at the beginning of every year, we also go through a process of reallocating funding for PO expenses from the prior year that were not spent. So if you have a $10,000 project, for example, and you only got $2,000 of the work done, the budget was set assuming you would finish for this year, and so then we look at reallocating that excess $8,000 so that project can be finished in this current year. So those are the three major pieces that are in this budget. I'm not sure if you have had a chance to look through that thoroughly. If you have any questions, I could entertain those now. But the items, the big items in our budget amendment, other than the payroll and the PO reallocations, of course, you're aware we had a proposal from our fire EMS department to do an additional amount for the facility out in Hiram. And then we have some personnel requests from the clerk auditor office and from the recorder's office. And those are both in here as well.
Cameron, did you restructure some of the way that the grant funding comes into the VOCA and VAWA and the victim services?
Yes. So, and
can you explain a little bit about that, please?
Yeah. So traditionally, when I first started here for several years, we had two grants, a VOCA grant, a VAWA grant, that were received and then tracked separately for victim advocate services. Over the years, we've added to those two grants, and we've tried to, at first, we had a separate department for each one of those grants, and we found over the last couple of years that that's maybe a little overcomplicated, and it confuses a little bit when we try to just look at the budget and say, well, what is our victim advocate service costing? How much is the county matching into that service? And so what we've done here actually is to reallocate everything into one department for a victim advocate department. And we will be tracking our grants. They still come in separately for each separate grant that there is, but we'll be tracking those against that one budget, which expenses are eligible for which grant, and also how much county match is required for each grant. This will simplify it on our end quite a bit. We hope it does on your end as well, just to see it all in one place rather than into 4 or 5 different places. Similar process in our CJC fund. There was 2 grants there as well, but we thought let's follow the same model, and so there's some reallocation there as well. In addition, on the CJC, you may notice there's requests for some transfers to that fund. Essentially, there's what we've got going on there is there's actual match required, and in the past that's been a little bit cloudy to see because we have an organization, Friends of CJC, that was raising funds for them and paying expenses on their behalf. And the way that really needed to be happening is to show donations to the county from that organization. So I had the same problem Chris was having. That's and then that way we can show the full expense, the full cost of that program for the county. So we see some of that adjustment there. In addition to that, we have some concerns with the new facility that is being built. One being that we got contracts signed above the amount we have allocated, and so we have a proposed allocation to meet that. In addition to that, part of the funding that and this actually is something that I need to highlight. Let me jump down there. In addition to that concern, let's see if I can find the page number for you. Let's see if I can find the page number for me.
Are you talking page 10?
Sorry, here we go. Yeah, it is on page 10. Thank you. Well, it's going to be on page 9 if we look at the revenues coming in. Oops. We have, well, actually, maybe. Oh, there we go. So on what page is that? Page 9, under intergovernmental revenue, under the Children's Justice Center Fund, so towards the top. There is an item there for $12,000 additional CDBG funding. The funding that we have in the budget already from CDBG is $168,000, so this additional 12 represents $180,000 in total. That funding was intended to be used for the new facility to help offset some of those costs. I'm finding out today that the full $180,000 is not going to be eligible for the building expense. The county can still receive those funds, but it will have to be for something different than that building. So exactly what that is, I think they still have in the works a little bit and are trying to resolve that issue. I expect we still will receive that $180,000, but it won't be for the building. And so the problem that causes is we've got to find a different way to fund that, or we've got to find a way to cut some of the expenditures into that building, or some combination of both, so that that building can be completed according to the contract that exists.
So are you saying that those monies can't be used for the actual building of the building itself, but can they be used for things used inside the building?
No. So, and I think there was actually some technicalities. That's why the discussion had been that these funds were going to be for that, but there was a couple of items that kind of didn't get their T's crossed and I's dotted, and so those funds will be ineligible for the facility.
That's too bad.
Any other questions for Cameron? Okay. Did you have something else additional?
No, so in relation to that, it'll just be, the CJC is going to be a little bit of a work in progress. We'll probably see an additional budget amendment at the next opening. So other than that, that's all I have.
Thanks, Cameron.
Yep.
So this is a public hearing as well. If there's anyone who'd like to comment on the amendments to the 2021 Cache County budget, they can come to the mic. Terrell.
So I'll try to explain a little bit about the CDBG grant. We had gotten it, and Cache gets money for outside of Logan. And so we had originally gotten that $168,000 when the pandemic hit, and we decided to move into Logan because there was nowhere else to go. CDBG said, oh, you can't use that money. Then they came back and said, oh, you can use the money. And then we were told we couldn't use the money. And then last week I was told we could use the money again. And unfortunately, with what's called the Bacon-Davis Act, and I think Bryce could speak a little bit more on that, with the Bacon-Davis Act, apparently you have to do so much work with it, and we're already, I mean, the flooring's in, the paint's being done. They can't go back now and do what that was meant to do. So we're looking for additional ways to spend the money that may offset some other costs. The other thing is we have about $116,000 in a grant request right now that I'm just waiting for approval from VOCA for that will offset some of those costs. And I'm about to put in another one for the HVAC system and the fencing. So we're not going to complicate things tonight, but I will tell you that we do have one grant request proposal out there we're waiting for, and we'll put in another one this week for the other things. And as items come up, I know that we only do a budget opening about once every 3 months. but I may come to you if we do get these additional funds so that we can get them spent. And I may come to you before June so that they can be added to the budget and we can use those monies. The VOCA grant that we're currently on, that ends June 30th. So all of this money that we're getting needs to be used by June 30th. So if we get these additional grant funds, then I'm going to have to come back to you sooner than June so that we can add them to the budget so that we can get that money used for the fencing and the ADA stuff. What else was in there? ADA, fencing, HVAC system, and things like that. So I hope that clarifies that we are still trying to cover these costs.
Yes, thank you, Terrell.
I didn't know if you had a question.
Any questions?
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. We removed 11A, so we are now down on 12A under initial proposals for consideration of action. Ordinance 2021-06, amending the zoning map to add the public infrastructure overlay in the A10 zone. And this is the tower rezone. Any thoughts, council? Any questions further questions you may have?
Well, I would waive the rules and make a motion to approve ordinance 2021-06.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to waive the rules and approve ordinance 2021-06. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries and that rezone is approved. Okay, item 12B, initial proposal for consideration of action. Ordinance 2021-07, amending the zoning map to rezone 20 acres from agriculture to the RU2 zone. And this is the Dry Canyon Estates rezone, correct? Yes. Council, any discussion or thoughts on this?
Well, I can see arguments on both sides for why the planning commission denied it, but I can see also some justification for allowing it to go forward as an RU2. But I'd like a little more time to study it and think about it before I can come to terms on how I feel about it. Maybe others have already made up their minds, and that's fine too.
Any other comments, council?
Well, the only comment that I might mention is that the planning commission went over it quite thoroughly and they all voted to deny it, so, that adds some bearing on what we need to think about as well.
I'll just say that I just went and looked up on the zoning map, and there are some smaller lots in that area.
Well, didn't it look like there was smaller lots just to the bottom of that when it was up on the map?
Well, that was in staff's report. If you go in there and look at the surrounding area, they were pretty good sized.
Well, there are around, but then just to
Yes.
this side of it, there was a whole field there that was boxed out with a lot of lots.
Well, there's a .33 acre. This is on 3rd South, if I'm looking in the right place. .32 acre. .32 acre. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots there. I don't know. I'm with Carl. I see both sides of this, but I'm also concerned about the fact that we have, what, you guys, 40 houses for sale in all of Cache County. We've got to start allowing building. We've got to allow people to build and have homes, and we've got to figure something out. So I would like to let us think about it for 2 more weeks and bring this back next time, to our next meeting, if there's no objection to that.
I have a question. I'm looking at this conclusion number 4. It says Smithfield City has expressed their opposition within their future annexation, and their future land use map indicates this area will be agricultural green belt, not residential development. Is that what it's being used for now? Yeah.
Looks like it.
Okay. And what, do we know what's being grown on there, or what isn't being grown?
Well, it looks like there's some dry farming going on.
Dry farming?
It looks
Yeah.
like dry farm alfalfa, just by the way I like
Yeah,
it.
they just basically one cut of hay and sometimes two if it's good rains.
And are you the current owners that do that farming on there?
No.
No? Okay.
It's our understanding it hasn't been done for a while.
Also, if you look at that piece of property, there's a bunch of rough land on it, so I'm assuming that must be steep. We can't build on it, but.
It's just toward the Canyon Road there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, there's two places that looks like it's rough land.
I'm a little hesitant to jump in on, here is a town that basically has a plan together as to what they want to do, and then we go jump in on the border and start rezoning everything around them. I'm a little worried that we, I'm worried that we're, it makes bad neighbors for us to go and jump around them if it doesn't already fit in their plan.
I'm curious why Smithfield wouldn't accept their petition for annexation, though.
Well, I believe one of the things was water. Annexation means that you've got to provide services, and right now, I don't think they can get the water pressure pumped up there, or whatever they do, and maybe there's some mitigation that can occur between, another well, like they mentioned at one time they could drill a well and maybe still work with Smithfield on that. But I don't think that we need to, I heard one of the arguments here was to make it affordable, make it economically for them to have more homes on that acreage. I don't think we're here to, make people a lot of money. I think we're here to be, again, effective users of the land, but also effective neighbors to our cities, and let the cities develop how they feel like they should be developing, rather than us dictating out on the outer fringes. So,
If I might add, I think there is some gray area in the approach to Smithfield City. If I'm right, you did not petition the city exactly. You've just taken what was done from the north and the south properties. Is that correct?
What they told us verbally.
So we don't have a real word back from Smithfield.
Okay.
There's also an RU5 that could be considered versus an RU2. So Planning Commission took all of those things in order, as well as the roads. Dry Canyon Road would need to be improved. There is talk about that they could come in on 300 South, but those are all of the things the Planning Commission took into consideration at that time.
So the Planning Commission considered RU5 as well?
No, but I'm just saying there is that alternative when we're talking, there's talk about, that would be 10 wells in that area. Of course, there's other houses there, but there's also talk about septic tanks and everything else. But we can't consider the water because that's under the state. But
The permit for the water would come from the state, and it'd have to be drilled and show that there is water there. We don't have any jurisdiction over that whatsoever.
no, and so that really wasn't considered in the planning and zoning. But the point of the talk to Smithfield and also the Dry Canyon Road, those are all pointed out in the staff report, and I know the Planning Commission gave heed to those as well.
This is off subject, but I'd like to ask the question, how come nobody comes in and asks for, a rural 5? It's either 2 or nothing. You never see it, even though it would work. Why do we never see that, Chris? Do you have an answer for that?
2 acres a week or 5 acres a week?
Yeah. I've seen one request when this first was adopted, so that's been some years ago. They came in for an RU5, and that just happened to suit their property. Most requests, it pencils out better for the developer to do an RU2 versus an RU5, and especially compared to an A10. And even as they mentioned tonight, that best benefits what they're trying to do. It makes it more affordable. I wouldn't refer to it as affordable housing because homes there are not going to be affordable housing, but it makes it more affordable for them to develop the property.
I guess the reason why I asked that question is it appears in some of these areas that the surrounding homes are on larger acreage. A 5-acre lot would be acceptable in that area, but then when you drop it all the way to 2-acre lot, then it's completely different than the surrounding, estates. And I've just never understood if they want to come in for 2 and there's very little chance of it being approved, why they don't come in with a 5 when it becomes more palatable to the neighbors and to the council. That's nothing to do with these people. I've just wondered that for a long time. You sit and watch these all coming in, and a 5 is never considered.
I think the ones that have been considered have come back as a second try. I know I can think of one that's done that they were denied as an RU2, but came back and were approved as an RU5.
We see so few of them that just questions my mind.
I think there's a big economics thing there. It's
Yeah.
basically a 10-acre RU2, there's 5 lots.
Yeah.
And RU5, you got 2 lots. When the price of lots right now, if you could sell 3 lots, that'd pay for your 2 lots or your home pretty fast.
No
And so that's the
question
economics of it right there.
That's a major reason why it does. But I just know as I've sat here on the council that you could almost swallow a 5 and make it work. You never see it. Oh, well, that's a question that's not really right now to be considered, but I was hoping that we'd have a real good explanation as to why 5 scares everybody off.
I think economics is the best reason from all the ones we've seen.
Well, council, do you want to take action on this tonight?
Well, I'll make a motion that we, per the planning commission, waive the rules and deny ordinance 2021-07 for the rezone.
Okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to deny ordinance 2021-07. All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Okay, we have to.
Aye.
So let's just do a quick roll call. So David Erickson, yay. Gordy?
Aye.
Carl?
Nay.
Gina? Nay. Barbara?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we can get that in the minutes. Okay. So the motion carries because it takes 2/3 vote to waive the rules, so 5-7, so the rezone is denied. Okay, let's move to ordinance 2021-08, amending the zoning map to rezone 6.69 acres from A10 to the rural RU2 zone. And that is, I'm looking here, 12C. That's the Mountain View subdivision rezone. Council, thoughts on that?
Well, planning commission said, I thought their report was sound and made sense, and I propose that we waive the rules, and I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 2021-09.
I'll second that.
Is it 09 or 08?
No.
08.
Yeah.
Oh, 08.
Did you said 9 and it's 8, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
8.
sorry.
That's okay.
Misspoke.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2021-08, which is the Mountain View subdivision rezone. Oh, and to waive the rules correctly.
Right.
To waive the rules and approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay from Dave? Okay, so the motion carries 6-1. The nay came from David Erickson, so we can get that in the minutes. So that subdivision is approved, or that rezone, I'm sorry, is approved. Okay, the next item is 12D, and this is ordinance 2021-09, and this is 9. And this is an amendment to the Cache County Fire Code. Council, any thoughts or discussion on this? Okay, any motions on this?
I mean, wildfire is gonna be a bigger and bigger issue, so the more we can do to get out ahead of it, I think is what we need to do. So I make a motion that we waive the rules and approve ordinance 2021-09.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 2021-09 and waive the rules. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One comment on that is that.
Motion carries.
This was, actually went through ordinance review committee. We went through all this, looked it over, and it had its blessing too, so.
Okay. Thank you, David, or Dave. We have a David and a Dave, and it's easy to get confused. Thank you, Dave, for that information. Okay, so that ordinance is approved. Now we are on item 12E, the resolution 2021-04, which is amending the Cache County budget. Council, what are your thoughts? And I want to make sure, John, it's my understanding, if the council chooses to approve parts or vote different parts as a nay, we have the ability to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, and if there is a desire to do that, I do that by motion to. Yes, you have that option.
Okay, not that that's going to happen, but I just wanted the council to know what their options are.
Well, I looked over it pretty carefully, and I would waive the rules and make a motion to approve resolution amending the county budget.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to waive the rules and approve this budget. Is there any further discussion?
Is this, I had a couple little questions on this as I was going through some things. And how this includes all those proposals we've been hearing as of late. How they're not going to, basically we're gonna be taking it out of the current monies and all those things. You know, it isn't bad that we evolve a little bit. I know there's transitions that we have in some of the elected officials and their departments. To me, it's, would be wise to evolve and just kind of work slowly as rather than just, I gotta have all these things and kaboom, big changes and then not know how to handle all those changes. But that's just my 2 bits there. I think that, you know, they've been some good presentations and everything, but I'm just a little hesitant to grow so fast, because it will come back to bite us, I think, in 2022 budget.
No, I think that's a good point, right? A lot of the stuff that's in here is current money. So being able to say, hey, we're gonna give you a little more flexibility within your own budget to reallocate is a great thing, but don't necessarily consider it a blank check for 2022 that you've reallocated and now all of a sudden you're short somewhere. Make sure that pencil's sharp on the next budget. But yeah, we'll give you the flexibility this year.
When we had tight years in the county budget, there were several years on top of each other that we would not allow the county to hire any more employees. And so, you know, that's still something we need to keep in the back of our mind, because the county is growing. It needs, you know, to be able to still provide the services, and it sounds as though we need to take some of the services and update them, which is really what they're requesting. But let's be really careful every time you hear, this is the way my office works, we need more help to do more things. And I just remember that is the same thing I heard years ago when I was involved in farm co-ops. The manager is always looking for more employees, and it's the same thing with generally county and federal government. They're always looking for more, you know, for more help. And just be cautious.
Well stated and
Barbara, you said that you had some
Yeah, I
questions?
just want a clarification just to make sure on the clerk and the elections that we're just approving one employee, is that correct? The senior deputy clerk?
Taking a part-time and making it, taking 2 part-time and going to full-time, but that office is also asking for 2 part-time for the auditor. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Is that correct,
Yes,
Cameron?
there's several people in your office that's quit. I guess we're planning on replacing them with the same time. I mean, that's not new money, it's just rehiring people that have quit. How many are we looking at in your office in the next few months?
None have quit from the auditor side, and that is just a reallocation of the budget from professional technical is what the line item is called, to part-time. I'm working through that with the audit committee, and so it just gives me the flexibility that when the audit committee gives more approval, that I'm ready to go in that, and the audit committee seemed ready to make a call on that. And then on the other one, just one. It's just one position in the clerk side for elections. And that's all we anticipate.
And on that audit committee, I know Carl and I were in that meeting yesterday, and I think this definitely gets back to what we talked about before. It's current year money, it's the same money, it's just a reallocation that Jess is gonna be working with. And then he's gonna continue to work with the audit committee to see if any changes need to be made. But right now, it's just kind of operating with the same budget, just a reallocation, given his oversight of that function.
What was the discussion in the audit committee about having 2 part-time people do the auditing as compared to a professional with that background who does that full-time and for a living? To me, it seems like that would be a better way to go than hiring some part-time people and having to train them. And I'd really like to see a professional auditing our work.
Without going into a lot of detail, we
Mhm.
spent 2 hours in that meeting.
Pretty close.
Okay.
And then discussed that in great depth. And I think what Jess has proposed is worth looking at and giving a try. There, we had some serious problems with what we had in the past. And so as a consequence, I think this could be a viable way to fix those problems without increasing our cost. If it doesn't work this year, then we'll look at it next year.
Thank you, Carl.
Okay.
And I think it gets just to what you were saying, Gina, the long discussion about that. And this just gives us the opportunity gives Jess the opportunity to kind of test it out a little bit, because, and continue to work with the audit committee on that very issue.
Did the committee talk about maybe, and Jess, maybe you guys talked about instead of hiring 2 people, just maybe go to outside people and just have them just come in and do it for this year with that same money?
We did.
Did you look at the state auditor's approved list of people? Okay.
What was some of the discussion there that you could share?
We're just gonna look at this, this gives him the flexibility to see if we can do it in-house with part-time people. If we can't, that budget money's still available to then go outside and do it. But there could be some folks
Yes,
that
it just
have the
shifts him
skills.
Running around, it gives him the flexibility to try some of that.
So if you can't find who you need, then you could we still,
Yeah.
without having to have another budget year, you could just say,
Right.
okay, we're gonna just go hire.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because maybe you take somebody that say.
I just didn't want to hamstring him so you've got to now hire 2 part-time and then not find the people that can do the job that we need done.
No, this gives them the ability to do that. It's just kind of like if you have somebody that's a professional that's doing it, or maybe you find somebody that is a professional that's in the twilight of their career maybe, or looking to make a switch, that wants to dial back and has that skill set to come in part-time and work part-time. There might be that opportunity, so this budget gives that flexibility. And if it doesn't work, that we can't find the part-time, then he has the ability to go back out and contract with the outside party.
I would love to hear a follow-up in about 6 months.
We
or
will.
tomorrow.
We got another two, we
whichever
got
one's
another
best.
2-hour audit meeting in our future then, is what you're
Yeah.
saying.
That would be terrific.
Thanks for that explanation. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a
Motion was made
motion.
and seconded.
Yeah, we have a motion on the table. I'll just advise the council, it takes a 2/3 vote to waive the rules. So I don't know how anyone's going to vote, but I just want to advise, if there's less than 5 votes, it's not voting down this budget amendment. It'll just go on the next meeting agenda. Is that right, John? Okay, all right. So all in favor of waiving the rules and approving the budget resolution?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries. And the 2 nays are Barbara and Gina for the minutes. Okay. Thank you. Our next item of business is 12F, consideration of the Matthews annexation petition into Providence City. Chris, can you talk to us about this?
This request is similar to ones you've seen in the past. So this has not yet gone to the Providence City Council for their action. What they'd like is some direction or action or approval, I think the state code says agreement, from the county, if they're okay with this. If they're not okay with it, then it helps the applicant to know what they need to do. The petitioner can change what they're doing. And it gives the county, or excuse me, Providence City some confidence in their action that then the county will not protest the annexation in the next 30 days after they certify and adopt it. So what you're looking at here, let me zoom out just a tad. The red square is the property proposed for annexation into Providence City. You can see that this area is already an unincorporated island. That's what triggers this to come before this body for agreement and approval. They're not really creating a new island, they're reducing the size of the existing island. We've brought the last 2 or 3 of these to the council, so we're going to be consistent with that, and this one's before you also, even though there's not really much of a change. As you read through the staff report there, you'll see that it doesn't really have an impact on us as a county, but it still does require your review and approval. Issues in the past that have required us to maybe take a stronger stance against these types of situations may be like a county road. So if there was a question about what area was going to be annexed, if it was the right, whether it should have been annexed or not, we would look at those things. Our Public Works Department, Matt Phillips, would look at that to determine if there was a good decision to be made there. In this case, there aren't any really outstanding issues. You'll see you have a couple options you can pursue on acting on this. It's either to agree or to disagree with it. And we'll then forward that to Providence City, however you decide to act. Staff's recommendation is that you agree to allow this annexation to occur. It's reducing the size of an existing unincorporated island. And while we'd like those to all come in at once, we can't force those property owners to annex into the city. So that's...
So why would, those are 2 different property owners, or at least 2, maybe what, 4 it looks like maybe?
Yes.
I think it's just a brother and sister that own that property.
So why is only
To the
one
north.
coming? Because it sounds like the property owner, or the one that's before us, isn't really excited about it. Why would only that piece be coming to us rather than the whole island?
That's a great question. And there's some backstory to this. There's some very strong feelings for the property owners on the south side of the road not to be part of Providence. And it's related partly to that road that you see identified as 700 South and 2100 South. There's a lawsuit involved there. In fact, the property that is located here, you see this piece that looks like it's in Providence? That's been disconnected under court order so that it cannot be part of it. There was an error, I believe, and then there was an issue with that right-of-way for that road in the past. The county was involved in, the county stepped out of that lawsuit. I can't speak to the details, I just know some of the side details, having overheard and been part of it on the side.
So the parcel in red, that property owner isn't adverse to being annexed?
Correct. They're requesting annexation into the city of Providence. I think I've seen the development proposal. They're gonna have a subdivision there that'll have access along that road and other roads that connect into the city. So again, their plan is to develop, and yeah, but the property owners to the south are averse.
The ones that are adverse, okay.
And 700 South there, that is not a county road, that's private owned?
Correct.
Thanks.
I received an email about Providence City's efforts or harassing him with annexation threats. And I don't know which parcel this individual owns, if he's the south parcel.
You see those
I
two
presume.
that are in yellow, the one that has he just described the property,
Is it Olson?
yeah, it's right there.
Okay.
It's Steve Simmons.
Okay.
Yeah, he's been writing to me, asking me about this. This is actually how I found out about it, because the timing was off, and so I called Providence City and said, hey, do you guys have an annexation going on that the county needs to know about? And they did, and and then I contacted Chris and he got the details. So I don't really understand the whole story of what is going on with that individual. There's two sides to every story. And I don't know that we have any legal recourse to, all we can do is protest it if it's an island and, right?
You have very strong grounds to prevent it from happening if you wanted it to, because the state requires the county to agree. So I don't want to go too far out on my legal limb, because I don't know how far that really extends for me.
Well, we had one of these in Logan where they approved the annexation and then came in afterwards, and we kind of retroactively had to ask you to approve it because it did the same type of thing. They're going about it the better way, which we read the state statute to actually require that they come initially and ask for your approval before they do something that creates an island. And as Chris says, this doesn't create an island, a new island, but it does make a new smaller island, so technically it needs your approval. I don't see any reason not to approve it. This is the first I've heard of this one, but in hearing it, I don't see any reason not to approve it.
So by saying that we're gonna be okay with the parcel outlined in red being annexed in, does that in any way impact if we wanted to say we would prefer not to have the parcels in yellow annexed in? Or can these be separate? What's that?
That question isn't in front of you.
But we're not gonna impede ourselves by doing the red, and they'll go back and say, well, you did the red, so you should be able to do everything else, or these are completely separate issues that we can decide?
Yeah, if the ones in yellow later came wanting to annex.
Or didn't want to annex.
Well, I don't think that Providence City can force them to annex.
They cannot be forced.
So it would be them coming and requesting an annexation. They would not need your approval, because at that point, there would, unless it was just one of those lots. But if all three of those remaining lots came together and said, we want to go into Providence, you wouldn't even hear about it.
The other thing is, there are no county roads.
Correct.
We don't have to provide any services within there, no half of the road and all that, right?
Correct.
This is a very clean one, it looks like.
It better be clean.
I'm gonna say,
I
this is
noticed
one of
that-
the few that they don't
You
just,
see this road to the east of it?
Yeah.
That road would continue into that property.
I noticed you've got two deadhead roads right now, 480 West and Garden, whatever that is. Looks like they just go right to that other property and stop currently from the north of the property that's being annexed.
Oh, yeah.
And so apparently with
I
their
think those will
development,
tie
they'll be
in.
just
I'll have
continuing
to
whatever
look.
they're gonna do. But as long as we as a county are not gonna have to go plow 300 feet of road, take care of things. In other words, when they want a little, they get it all, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, the county stepped away from that a few years ago during that lawsuit.
Well, I certainly don't see any problem with giving a nod to the annexation.
I think the issues of the other landowners is really a Providence City and those landowners' issues. It's not a county
It's really
issue.
not, we're not involved in it, in my opinion.
So what are they referring to in the email that talks about county maps and stuff? Is that what you identified in the yellow at first?
Yeah, so this section, that's Mr. Simmons.
Yes.
I'm gonna assume that's this piece here. This is already, if I remember right, I think it's already to the Lieutenant Governor's office to have that disconnected from the city of Providence. So the property, you see this yellow property, oh, didn't mean to do that, yellow property line here. Everything south of there will go back into the county because that is Mr. Simmons' property. And the new city boundary will follow that line. And then if this is annexed, that line will jog down and continue to the west.
So that's the part they're talking about, the county map doesn't jive with what they feel is going on?
Correct.
Okay.
Why is that?
Why was it?
No, I guess why I'm asking, why I even asked that is because, is that further than that 66-foot center road right-of-way kind of issue that we have?
I think it comes back to the claim that it was road right-of-way.
Right.
And so it was annexed as part of the previous annexation. And then by court order, it was determined not to be part of a road right-of-way, and so it was deeded, not deeded back, but it was recognized as belonging to Mr. Simmons.
So does that go against what that big research project that Lawyer Daines did a while ago, and said that, hey, we have the right of way from the center 66 foot out, and remember all that?
The Sandy,
It's
33 feet out?
I believe that's part of why the county was initially involved in that lawsuit.
Yeah.
And then, I'm not party to the reasons why the county withdrew from that lawsuit, but that was why we were initially there.
So are we still gonna, well, there's a right of way, are we still?
We gave up all claim.
We've given up all rights?
Not
to
our
that?
road.
Okay.
Yep.
I just,
By court order, it's not ours.
Well, I don't see any issue with it at all.
Is there any reason why we can't just make a motion and waive the rules and make it
well,
happen?
it's not a.
It's not.
What do we need?
This is
We
just
need to do anything.
a
We're
simple,
just not gonna
a vote would be
object.
great, an agreement.
Would be good to
Yep.
get a motion on the record of
Yep.
approving.
It's not an
that
ordinance, so we
annexation.
just gotta
For
make a
the
motion that
annexation?
we accept
Okay.
and encourage the other, accept the annexation. Okay, I'll make that motion that we go ahead and accept the request to be able to annex into Providence.
I'll second. Go ahead.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this request for this property to annex into Providence City. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Chris, for all your help today.
No worries.
Okay, we will move to 13, other business. The 2021 newly elected officials training is going to be next week, Thursday, March 18th. It goes from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's at the Utah State University's Salt Lake campus, and the address is there. It's in Taylorsville. Those interested in doing that, I'm hoping that UX been contacting you. David Zook, have you got information about that? They asked me to make sure that they said
Which one?
about the newly elected officials training.
I haven't received any. new
Okay, I'll make sure. They're like, we need his address, and then I forgot to give it to him, so
So we've got.
Thank you.
I will do
we've
that.
got David and.
Jess, are you going to that? Okay.
If they'd put the word party in there, I'd be more apt to go. So,
We have a lot of fun.
just mentioning, so.
My problem is they need the word remedial if I'm gonna go, so.
Crayons and stuff, right?
Great. Okay, I'll make that suggestion. I won't take credit for it, though. Okay, our council, we're going to have our council photograph taken. That's going to be ahead of our next meeting on Tuesday, March 23rd. So we're going to be here at 2 o'clock, please. And we talked about if you have some bright colors, can you wear those? We noticed in our other council photos that we kind of blend into the background because the background is dark, and then our suits or attire is dark. So if you've got something bright, I'm just suggesting, you don't have to, but maybe you don't want to look like a floating head.
All comes from my funeral director.
You'll look like a funeral director.
Hawaii shirt. Bright colors.
I don't know, maybe some of you have a pink jacket like one of our.
Just remember, Dave, it's salmon, not pink.
Okay, salmon, right. Anyway, if you don't, that's okay. I just wanted to offer that suggestion because it had been mentioned. Okay, our council winter social, even though it's in spring, because we had to move it, that's going to be March 30th. So that's the off Tuesday for council, and that's at 6 p.m. And Barbara, do you want to tell them a little bit about it? She's been working really hard on this. So.
Okay, this is going to be at Cafe Sabor, and it's at 6 p.m. and we'll have a private room, and we don't have to pay for the private room. We just pay for the dinner. So everybody, partners and yourself, and please come.
What time is it?
6.
6 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you, Barbara.
We'll probably be upstairs.
That'll be a little late for your dinner, isn't it? You're usually a little early.
Oh, no. You talking to me?
Oh, Carl. Carl, you eat dinner before 6?
I'm just giving Carl a bad time, you know?
Maybe have a
I eat at 6 and then 7 and then 9.
What time does Meals on Wheels get there?
Could I have just kind of a
Depends on the weather.
rough count of who will be going, please?
And your spouse, right?
And your spouse.
We should be there, yeah.
4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and then
I would like
James.
Janine to be invited. She's too much.
Yes.
Oh,
For
yeah,
sure.
she's definitely invited.
We missed
And
her on the
we
last
are
one.
going to invite John and his wife and Craig and his wife too.
Janine comes, then the word party can be put in there rather than
That's
social.
right.
Okay, this is a party.
This is a party. Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Nolan will
Bryce?
come.
No, come. If that's how we get a party, can you come to the training with us too then?
Okay. Yep. Okay, the next item of other business is UAC is having its first annual Transportation Trade Show and Training Conference. That's April 7th to 8th, and that's in Vernal. And Janine put a little item giving some details about that on the iPad. It should be a neat thing. They used to call it Road School, and they're inviting everyone, Public Works, our engineers, GIS, mayors or executives, the councils, are all invited. So we're going to talk about transportation, and we'll have vendors there as well. And UAC is working on getting the lieutenant governor, or the governor, I keep thinking of him as lieutenant governor. Governor Cox will be on hand to sign some bills that relate to infrastructure and transportation. So there might be a party atmosphere there, Nolan. Could be
Maybe a
fun.
road grader or a tractor or something like that?
Seriously, I think they're gonna bring some equipment in there too to look at. So I think it could be really informational and helpful. The UAC Management Conference is gonna be May 12th through 13th at the Davis Conference Center in Layton. I will tell you that we're planning on doing a skit on how a bill becomes law. So again, Nolan, there will be some fun involved. I think that will be very memorable.
Brightly dressed, right?
Yeah, and I will probably be in that skit, so I may never live that down, but. I'm not gonna be the bill. I am not doing that. I'll be something else. And I'm not gonna sing the song either, because people would run screaming from the building. So, okay, let's move to our council member reports. Nolan, let's start on your end with you this time.
Flip. I guess I'm going to start with what I called Gina earlier this week and talked about some of the things that came to me at Planning Commission. In the last few months, there's been an issue, because John White wasn't at Planning Commission, to pass on some information as far as the road update and everything else. And kudos to John and Matt on what they did on the road. But Planning Commission members caught me and said, hey, we're very interested in what happened on the road issue, because we passed it and they had asked not to be passed because they had some questions. They still do. John and I talked with a couple of the members, and I'm going to present that maybe we as a council consider meeting with the Planning Commission once or twice a year just to help them understand some things. Because Brady did bring out some good points on the road issue. I mean, we talked tonight about we need to let the county build and get some things going, but this road issue for in the outlying counties really stops building for some of those guys who want to build. And so I have some concerns there. I've talked with John. Hopefully we can come up with some kind of pioneering or something that helps. If this person has to pay for the road, that he gets help later on, that he's not stuck with it as other people swoop in now that a new road is built, because we all know that if that road is asphalted and everything else, that all the property owners around there probably see an increase in the value of their property or see a benefit if they develop it down the road. So just some things there that the Planning Commission is wanting to understand on the road thing, and I think it would help. All the time that I was on Planning Commission, I only remember meeting once with the council, and those guys, I mean, we had a packed house here last time, and it's going to be coming to us. So helping them understand so that if they do something and we don't, so they understand the intricacies of it. John, do you have anything else to add on that?
Sure. You remember that you did two things at once at the recommendation of the County Attorney's Office and Public Works, and that was to revoke Resolution 2015-20 and upgrade the road manual at the same time to require asphalt. And we worked with you for about a year on that, or the better part of a year on that, and right at the end, and I'll take the heat on this one for not realizing before that was a land use regulation. So we were ready to have you finish your work and then realized, but it's got to go through Planning Commission first. So with no similar time to educate and inform, we just put it on their agenda, and they got a little bit of education that night and said, we've got some concerns, and we brought it back to you, and you did what we'd been planning for about a year to do. But that left them feeling like we did not get the education that we needed, and why did they do it, even though we said we had concerns. And that's kind of the background as to that particular issue, that realizing that there are ramifications when you just at the last minute put it on somebody's agenda. But the bigger picture is it would probably be nice to meet together and do a workshop on some road issues and your thoughts, and let you exchange thoughts with the Planning Commission on that and some other issues.
Well, and
it would have been wonderful if they'd just made that decision and brought it to us, too, you know, as far as.
That's true, and they may have done if they'd been in the loop.
You know, and then we just support them, but somewhere there was a disconnect.
well, there was, because John had his heart issue and he wasn't at Planning and Zoning for the last part, and I was on Planning and Zoning. Then I'm a newbie coming sit on the council, and I get the vote, and so. I mean, in RU2 and RU5, the thing that came before us tonight, is where that one sat. It's close to a city, but I didn't see that they had approached the city and everything else, and so the Planning Commission says if an RU2 is close to a municipality, but if they don't go and talk to the city, then it's hard to go about those things. So I just think those things help in us understanding and us helping the Planning Commission, or the Planning Commission helping us too, because they really do see a lot of stuff sitting there, and there's some guys that have been there on a long time too, and there's not a lot of excitement from the public to get on that part either. So
That's a hard job.
Chris has talked with me about this too. If Chris wanted to weigh in, that if the Planning Commission really does do the heavy lifting on land use regulations, that allows you to shift some of your burden to looking at other big picture issues, and that it is good to let the Planning Commission do the heavy lifting on the things that they're assigned to. Not that you can become a rubber stamp, but.
I think that we have. You know, I thought we've actually, there's most things, but once in a while, like the road issue was an anomaly, you know, that's come up that I wish they would have been there and just made the decision, send it on, then we support them, or we support their approval or their denial. And work
Well, they
with them.
denied it, so, because they still had questions, wasn't that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they still do. That's why I think some kind of meeting where we can all sit down and give them some background and some.
I know that last meeting we did have together was a good meeting.
It was. It helped us on the RU2s and the RU5s and everything else in that way too, so.
It's good to see
That's been a long time.
Yeah, it has
It's been
been
a
a long
few years.
time. Would the council object to getting a meeting together with the planning commission?
Should we do that as another workshop or something?
Do that as another workshop?
Would they?
I think the members were agreeable to that, right, John?
Yes.
Only thing we talked about, I think that has to be noticed for the public, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We can definitely do that. Okay, anything else, Nolan?
I forgot if there's anything else, so that'll do me for tonight.
Thanks, Nolan. Paul?
Two things. One kind of a lighthearted thing with what's been going on lately in the world. I just want to give everybody two book recommendations.
I thought you brought some wine.
Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. I read in 7th grade. Thought it was a fantastic book. I went and reread it recently. It was a fantastic book, fantastic read. And I also read one that I read before 7th grade. Fidwick the Big-Hearted Moose. This one hasn't been canceled yet. I'd suggest reading it. It has some great.
I was hoping you'd had
I have
the
all the
Mulberry
canceled.
Street.
I have all the canceled ones, but I can't bring them. They're too valuable now.
My
Are they
wife-
worth about
my wife went
$10,000
on,
apiece?
Online on eBay. Somebody was selling one of those for $9,000.
Wow.
Okay, well, I have my retirement paid for.
Yep.
You're in the money, Paul.
So that was one that's kind of lighthearted, but our county executive brought up the suicide issue and the RAPS issue with what we're facing as a society. And what really I just want to highlight and see what we can do as a county. These things, they're tragic. They're hugely tragic. But the biggest tragedy is they were known and they were knowable for a long, long time. And the folks that can run around now and say, we didn't know, you did know. Because I'm going to read this. I read it last June. D.A. Henderson. That experience has shown that communities respond best and with the least anxiety with the normal social functioning of the community when the normal social functioning of the community is least disrupted. And the things that we've done as a nation and as a state have almost been inexcusable in my mind. You look at Bayesian statistics and you keep continuing to look and update what you need for new information. The fact that the current health orders keep referring back to the BYU study that was flawed last summer and is even more flawed is almost inexcusable. And to see the consequences that we're facing as a society from suicides, from depression, from economic hardship, I'm really mad about it. And people need to be called to account. And if they say they didn't know and they only looked at one piece of society, if we don't stop and really hold some of this to account, the civilization we have that's liberal, that's free, that's prosperous, we're never going to get out of this cycle. This COVIDization of everything and only focusing on one part of life, inexcusable. Inexcusable. I'm sorry.
Is that emotion?
I'm just passionate about it. I've been mad about it.
Emotion, was that emotion? I was gonna say.
No. I've been mad and I've been consistent, and anybody you want to bring, I will be happy to debate them at any level because it has been inexcusable. It's been almost a dereliction of duty, and I don't say that lightly.
Paul, thank you. Many of us concur with that.
I'm not so sure anybody disagrees with you. That's good.
Yeah.
I love your passion, Paul. Thank you.
I do too.
It's going to get me in trouble one day.
Thank you, thank you.
Barbara, what do you have for us?
I had a really good visit with Michael Ballum yesterday. He took me on a very great tour of the Don Sante building and the Eccles Theater. And it really was brought home to me how very sad it is that we've let that all go. You know, it has suffered much. And I will have to say that in the past, I've wondered about the opera company and all the money that we've poured into that and what we've done. But after what he showed me yesterday and how many people are out of a job, I think he said there were hundreds of people that have been out of a job. Some of his people will not be back because they've gone other places to work, and some of that talent is something that's just in this valley, and we're losing that talent. But it was very eye-opening to me, and David Zook, I agree with you. With the RAPS committee, we should be probably looking at those that have been affected so much because of last year and what's going on. And it's not just the opera company. There are a lot of areas in this valley that really need to step up and maybe take a different look at some of those things so that we can help those businesses and help them get back and going. So the other thing is, just to make clear for me, are we having a workshop next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. I'm sorry. Yes. So we'll have our picture taken at 2 o'clock. I wrote it on here and then I skipped it. And then at 3:30, we have our Economic Development Director, Sean Milne. He's going to come and give us a presentation on economic development and answer any questions we have. And that'll be good to hear from Sean. We've got some decisions coming up on some TIF financing and things that direction. So it will be good to hear his expertise and any advice and ways to think through the process in economic development. So that will be 3:30 at our next meeting. So that'll be kind of a long meeting. We'll try to keep the agenda limited so we don't turn into zombies by 5:15. Barbara, do you have anything else?
No, that'll be it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I'll go ahead. I will say that, because this is along those same lines, I don't know if you guys have been following the news. Sometimes you don't always hear what comes out of Planning Commission, but there's been a big debate about allowing a compost facility which uses biomatter, comes from the sewer, human waste. This is just a headline. You'll have to dig in the details as we get in, but that is coming our way. And the Planning Commission is suggesting denial. People there in Benson, where this would be at 3200 West and 1400 North, have packed the chambers, these chambers before for public hearings and meetings about that with the Planning Commission. So just to give you a heads up, that's coming down the pike, and with that, Isa Hamed from Logan City is asking if the council would like to take a tour. He's offering he'd like to get us on a city bus, or CVTD, I'm sorry, and take us down to the Davis County facility, which is similar to what Logan City would like to do, to give us a tour and help us understand better. He's also willing to meet in half-hour increments with anybody to talk about any concerns or issues that they have. So I'll ask Janine if she'll send out like a little email or text or something to us, and we can figure out a timing on that if anybody wants to go, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And Janine, I'll get with you more about that. Chris, do you have something on that?
Yeah, just a quick update. The Planning Commission did act on that to deny the request for the rezone. It'll come to the council to set a hearing next meeting. And so typically you would hear it at a public hearing if you set it for that first meeting in April. So from a timing standpoint, as you look at that, that might be helpful.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
So we'll look to set the public hearing in our next meeting, and then we'll have the public hearing the first week of April.
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
I think a site visit like that would essentially be a workshop if you all go at the same time, and so you need to notice the public and
Okay.
bus, or at least let them show up.
There was
So-
one
so you're-
scheduled.
Get a
yeah,
bigger
go in-
bus is what you're
Either
saying.
go in groups, or you'll need to notice for the public.
Thank you, John.
Little bus.
There was one scheduled.
It fell through.
Canceled last minute,
Yeah, it fell through.
and they were going over to Brigham City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, also just kaboom, it was just, canceled, so.
Yeah, would you like me to ask him why we don't go to Brigham City
I
instead?
don't think anyone on the Solid Waste Advisory Board has heard anything about this.
Isa has reached out to me, and I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow. I'm assuming that's what he's coming to talk to me about, but.
But even the Solid Waste Advisory Board, you'd think this is called solid waste.
Yeah.
Literally, and,
Not all the way solid.
but, serious, we have not met and talked about,
Needed my fee.
really what they're headed.
Well,
But maybe that part of it, maybe
I think it's gotta at least go to those people before it comes before us.
unless solid
They're
waste,
doing it
unless
as a
their
thing.
definition of solid waste may just be garbage. So,
well, the thing is, the stuff's gotta go somewhere.
and it always ends up in the North District, and we don't know why.
This is gonna be a good debate, I can tell. I think that's all that I had for council.
Well, you got a bit of, our issues with the audit committee already, so I won't go into that. I'll just comment that, this year, I've been appointed as the chairman of the Bragg Governing Board, so if you've got any issues with Bragg or anything that, we need to cover, let me know. That's all I've got.
Are you taking Jeff's place, Carl?
What's that?
Are you taking Jeff's place?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Jeff's spot, okay, good deal.
Thank you. Gordy?
I don't know if anybody else picked up on it, but there was an invite, I think it was from Chris, wasn't it, about the mobile slaughter unit that's over in, Chris, give us a little more detail, because we're gonna have to deal with that in the next little while. We might need to be educated a little bit more.
Well, Paul berated me, and so since then, I've just been kind of trying to get it done fast as I can. But it's the
I
farm.
just want a good steak, Chris, that's
It
all.
is, yeah, I agree. So it's the farm custom slaughter piece we've been looking at, where we allow pretty large scale stuff like Miller's would be similar for these large scale slaughter operations. And people can do it on their own, but there's nothing in between to balance it. So we've been researching and working with the Planning Commission and how we can fill that gap, because there is a significant and dire need, and the council's commented on that, saying we need to get something in place. So we've been working on that, working with the state on getting some ideas. We sent out a doodle poll, so check your emails. It would go probably to your county email. Just check some of you have two, so check both your emails, check your junk mail. Sometimes it should have come from us, not from a doodle poll. So it should come from a county address. But we're looking at a couple different days, either this coming Thursday, next Tuesday, or next Thursday. And there's an operation in Ogden that the state referred us to that's an example of a good operation. It's a farm custom slaughter, smaller scale. They harvest, I think is the right word. They do kills twice a week, and that's 8 to 10 animals per time, so about 20 per week. To give you some scale, that's around, he averaged 1,200 to 1,500 per year that they harvest at that location. Miller's is, 2,500 to 3,000 a day, yeah. So to give you an idea of scale, it's very small scale, and it's intended to accommodate all the other folks in the area who are farmers, who have kids who have animals, and it's typically you're looking at beef, pigs, lambs. That's really what he looks at. So we're looking to go down there, maybe spend an hour, ask some questions. Planning Commission's invited. They're going to be, whoever can make it, we're going to try to get them there, and then let them report back to whoever couldn't make it, to try to communicate what is trying to be accomplished, and maybe help us all see some possible solutions. I'm also reaching out to the city. This is in Weber, or not city, this is in Weber County. and trying to get feedback there. I've been unsuccessful, but I'll continue to pester them. But we'd love to have any of you. We'll figure out rides as soon as we know who's able to attend.
Is this to work with Forest?
Yes, this is
Okay,
with
this
Forrest.
is why we're doing this.
In
Okay.
fact, just as I was sitting back there, I got an email from Forrest saying he's sorry he hasn't got back to me for a little while, and he's re-engaging. So
Okay, great.
I think he's ready to get
Yeah.
moving.
No, I gotta give Chris kudos for a lot of the land use stuff that he's been doing and the work he's done. It's been tremendous, and I
Yes.
really appreciate him.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
For the council to kind of understand what we're up against with this slaughtering business. Right now, if you want to slaughter a home beef or sheep or hog, and you want to take it to Tires up there in the north part of the valley, you're talking the fall of '22. The animal's not even born.
They're in
Yeah.
2023 now.
Are they?
Yeah.
Brent Davis is where we would go. He's 2 years out right now.
Yeah,
Wow.
so there's a real need. I think
There
there's
is.
an opportunity for somebody to get involved in this and make a pretty good livelihood, because there seems to be a lot more interest in killing your own beef instead of buying it out of the store, and just isn't anybody out there that's doing it. But I have to say that I finally got my beef killed. It was actually today. I delivered it yesterday over to the University Slaughterhouse over there. And that beef had been ready to be killed in December. Can you imagine how fat that poor old steer's gonna be? I don't even know if maybe it'll be good, maybe it'll be just terrible, I don't know. But it was huge, and there was a lot of rolling fat on it.
A lot of marbling on that.
There's a lot of marble. In fact, I think 20% marble will have to be thrown away.
And for those of you who might have a concern, Mr. Davis did ask if we wanted to be there when they killed the animal, and I said no.
Yeah.
Dave was a little disappointed.
I'm a
So I
city
said,
girl,
We're really just interested in the process. We probably don't need to see the process. I think a lot of my folks might not be interested in seeing that portion. But just to give you an idea, when they do the kill, the state inspectors there has to be humane. They watch the whole thing and make sure they're very regulated. Just as a teaser for some of the information that'll be coming your way.
Okay.
But we've only seen support for this.
Thank you,
Most
Chris.
of us are more interested in the final product.
Yes.
True.
Is that everything, Gordon?
Yeah.
Thank you. David Erickson, Dr. Dave.
Carl, you already got yours, huh? I was in Neverland here. In the morning, we have LeGrand Bitter he's the director of their special districts. He's coming up to Lewiston and to help get all those, they got one drainage district all up and going and running like it should, and he's coming up to help the other three get all organized, and so there should be a wave of some names then sent to county executive, so that we need to advertise it like we did the last time, and start getting those districts completely organized so that they can verifiably, legally spend taxpayer money that they're being collected up there and do things right. So that's happening in the morning. So that's all green and go. I know we have talked a little bit about policy review, and I think we need to kind of bring that out a little bit to fine tune. Let's fine tune our county policies somehow as we're working with each from department to department. So let's see, Barbara, they did pass where you don't have to have concealed weapons permit now. You can just, when you go jogging, you're fine, so.
Shoot back.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll carry.
And I've been on the RAPS committee this past, couple of years there, and they look at everything. It's a well-rounded committee, and I don't think we need to tell them that you just have to go to one direction this year, because we withheld some money knowing what the impacts of last year. I think that they look at everything. They look at the big picture of everything too. So I don't think we need to sit there and just tell them to just spend it on something that brings money, because we're finding out maybe our economics and sales taxes and all that, they aren't as contingent on just one thing as other people may tell us. So look at the big picture on all that, so, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, seeing no other business on the agenda, we are adjourned.